The year is 2012. Formula 1 has had its best season since 2010 with 6 world champions, 2 rookies, and coming in to the final race of the season, 2 drivers were battling it out all season long, with Fernando Alonso in the Ferrari on 260 points and Sebastian Vettel in the Red Bull on 273 points. 1 race, 1 winner, and a 13-point gap. It was all to play for. Now, to fully understand the importance of the 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix, you actually need to go back a little bit and get some information before this race throughout the full season. Now, Alonso needed realistically to win the Brazilian Grand Prix with Vettel in 5th or below. But throughout the season, we found out that this wasn't really the case. The Ferrari just wasn't that fast, and for Alonso to get another win ahead of every other car, it would need quite a lot. Take, for instance, the car graphs. So, from the average of every track put together in 2012, the McLarens were the fastest on the grid. However, the issue with them was they were riddled with mechanical issues throughout the full season, so they weren't even fighting for either of the championships with the fastest car. You had Red Bull, the reigning world champion, with the second fastest car, so they looked pretty decent throughout the whole season. Then you had the dark horses of Lotus, technically Renault Lotus. A lot of weird stuff happening with Renault at that point in F1 because of Crashgate, but they were actually the 3rd fastest car, being the Dark Horses, with Kimi Raikkonen actually finishing, scoring a whopping 207 points in a full season. And one of my favourite facts of Formula 1 around this time was that Kimi Raikkonen actually had a bonus for every point he scored, as Lotus did not think they'd be that good. And for every point he scored, he was going to get 50,000 euros, meaning he ended up getting 19.5 million in bonuses just from points alone, which almost bankrupt Renault/Lotus, and he actually is still owed that money to this day. But he knows, and he's fine with it, that he's never going to get it. And then you had the Ferraris in 4th. Ferrari had a lot of work to do, especially Alonso. And it was just incredible that Alonso was able to even get that car to where it was for the Brazilian Grand Prix. To be in a championship fight in the 4th fastest car, that is Fernando Alonso things. And with Alonso having 3 wins to Vettel's 5 throughout the season, if Alonso wanted to do everything right, he had to push through Vettel. He could not even finish on equal points. Now, heading into practice and qualifying, there was a few issues for Ferrari, especially Fernando Alonso. And that was that they had a few cars in their way. McLaren were looking absolutely rapid throughout the whole practice sessions and into qualifying, where they qualified 1st with Hamilton and 2nd with Button. Then you had the Force Indias of De Resta and Hulkenberg. Now, in qualifying, they were getting in the mix with the big boys of Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren, Lotus. They were getting all in there, and on race pace, it looked very good for them. So they had to figure out how to beat the Force Indias as well, who looked very fast. It was not looking good after practice and qualifying, with the Ferraris looking slower than the Force Indias, the Red Bulls, the McLarens. It was a nightmare. So with their pace, all Alonso could do was 7th, with his championship rival of Sebastian Vettel in 4th place. And if the championship ended with the positions they were after qualifying, Sebastian Vettel would have won with 285 points to Alonso's 266 points. That would have been a massive gap. That would have looked like there wasn't even a championship battle going on if it finished like that. However, what we needed to know going into this race is it was the Brazilian Grand Prix. And as we saw a week ago, and as we've seen throughout all of Formula 1 history, never say never when it comes to the Brazilian Grand Prix. Let the race begin. Lewis Hamilton booming away into the first corner with his teammate Jenson Button and Felipe Massa with a massive start, by the way, from 5th, heading in to 2nd and 3rd place with a lot of chaos behind them. We had Webber, who didn't have the best of starts, went down from 3rd to 4th, but more importantly, Vettel took it very cautiously, and by the end of turn 3, he was only in 7th, whereas Ferrari of Fernando Alonso and his teammate Massa had great starts, with Massa in second place and Alonso in fifth. So instantly Vettel had the pressure put on him from his championship rival, and it would just get worse.
Massa and Jensen Button, Paul di Resta challenging Sebastian Vettel now as we ride on board down the Retroposta towards the Skidoo de Largo. It was a cautious start from the championship leader. It has not played out for him. Locking up and brakes, and there goes Kimi Raikkonen wide and off the track.
And was that...
It's a Red Bull! It's a Red Bull! It's Sebastian Vettel in the middle of the track! It's the worst possible scenario for Sebastian Vettel, who started on the second row and is now running right down at the bottom of the field.
So after the first lap, we had Vettel with damage to his car that the team had told him they could not fix, dwindling in last place, and the championship gap was now 5 points. It was actually all in Alonso's hands now, as it would have been an impossible task to get Vettel back into the points. But the drama didn't stop there, as Alonso took his opportunity with the Vettel drama being at the back of the grid, and he knew he had to strike now while the iron was hot and go for it for the championship. And when he did, he did. Massa looking slow into the first corner of lap 2, Webber went for the overtake, and Alonso went for, I think, one of the best overtakes I've ever seen in Formula 1 history, getting round both of them.
Up the main straight we go. Massa from Webber, and Webber pulls out onto the right hand side, and he might be about to make a move, and here goes Fernando Alonso down the inside, and Alonso has put himself up into the podium positions by the end of the first lap.
It was an incredible move, and behind them, don't forget, we had Hulkenberg getting ahead of both of them because of all of this dilly-dallying that they were doing. So we now had Alonso in third place with 15 points, with Vettel still at the back of the grid trying to get past everyone. Meaning at that point in time, Alonso was winning the championship with 2 points. So just after 2 laps of the Brazilian Grand Prix, with everything looking as hard as possible for Ferrari and Alonso to win a championship, they now actually were leading it with everything pointing in their direction. It was all to play for. But it wouldn't stop there, with a lot of pressure on Alonso to keep that third place from the very fast Nico Hulkenberg behind him. Alonso went wide into turn 1 and let Hulkenberg pass on lap 5, meaning he dropped down to 4th, losing the championship point deficit he needed again. And it wasn't looking good. Webber right behind him. He just about kept that 4th place. And if Alonso wanted to win the championship, he had to do better than that.
Moves over Felipe Massa there, making it almost 3 abreast going into the Skidoo de Largo, and Fernando Alonso.
Oh, and by the way, that put Hulkenberg up into the podium positions. But with all the chaos and rain starting to creep up onto the track, cars were losing all the grip they had, with multiple people crashing and multiple people going off the track, including Mark Webber having a little spin of his own, which led to this impossible task of Vettel trying to get back into the points, being in 10th. By lap 10, because everyone around him was spinning off, just not being able to perform on this wet track when they were all still on dries. But who could? The Red Bull of Sebastian Vettel, and he was rapid. He was getting fastest lap after fastest lap, showing he was not giving up this battle without a fight. And then funnily enough, by lap 18, we had a new leader, with the McLaren struggling on the tyres that they had. Hulkenberg, as she came through, took Button and Hamilton and was leading the race. Nico Hulkenberg in the Force India was leading the Brazilian Grand Prix. It was absolute scenes. But from this period, from lap 11 to lap 21, it did look like the Inters were pretty good. So from this point, Vettel again was able to recover from P14 into P4. However, by lap 21, Nico Hulkenberg had a puncture, and that brought out the safety car in lap 23, meaning everyone had to pit. And by the time everyone had their pit stops done and dusted, getting back on to the dry tyres, as again the track was drying out too quickly and the Inters were dropping off, it meant that the grid was as followed. Nico Hulkenberg in first, Jensen Button in second, Lewis Hamilton in third, Fernando Alonso in fourth, and Sebastian Vettel in fifth. And for a brief, weird period of the race, it would actually chill out a bit, as from lap 31, nothing much happened, as the rain was not coming down as hard, but this wouldn't last for too long, as if there's a moment of peace in Brazil, you just know it's going to be completely overrun with chaos anytime soon. As we saw on lap 47, Nico Hulkenberg make a half spin to give Lewis Hamilton the lead of the race, who had overtaken his teammate on lap 31, And then something terrible happened as Hulkenberg was desperate to take back his chance to win his first Grand Prix.
Right on Hamilton.
He is. Hamilton slowed by the back markers. He locks up. Hulkenberg might just go through here and back up into the lead. No, they've touched! And Hamilton and Hulkenberg come together. Damage for Hamilton and Hulkenberg. And the back markers getting in the way and seemingly ruining the afternoon.
This collision would lead to Lewis Hamilton retiring out of the Grand Prix and Nico Hulkenberg falling down to second place. But what I hadn't mentioned before was that while all of this was happening, a lot of rain again was coming, getting that dry track onto more of an intermediate weather track. But the issue was Vettel and Red Bull, because of issues with their radios, had gone on to hard tyres before they knew all of this rain was coming, because they could not properly talk to Vettel in the car, meaning only a few laps later, Vettel then had to come in to get onto the intermediate tyres, which he then needed because of the track getting wetter, and to put more salt into the wound, these tyres weren't ready for him, meaning he dropped dramatically down the order and had it all to do again. So from lap 54 till the end of the Grand Prix at lap 71, he had to go from P11 to a minimum of P7 to win the championship. And with the only driver in Alonso's way being his teammate Felipe Massa, who would 100% give him the position, being second place, that meant Vettel had all the work to do and no time to do it. But my God, did he do it in even less time. Within a matter of laps, he was already up to the pivotal P7, and then to just pour more salt into the wound of Fernando Alonso, Michael Schumacher let Vettel pass with ease, letting his countryman go ahead to win his third driver's title. Vettel just had to cross the finish line in 6th place and Alonso in 2nd to win the championship by 3 points. And that is exactly what happened. The rester crashed out a few laps later, meaning the miracle Ferrari needed was just not going to happen, as the safety car led the cars up to the finish line of the final lap, meaning Jenson Button won the race, with Fernando Alonso in 2nd, Vettel in 6th, just enough for Sebastian Vettel to win his 3rd Drivers' World Championship in Formula 1. And right after the race finished, we got to see one of the saddest, most heartbreaking videos of Fernando Alonso staring off into the distance, just thinking what could have been. 3 points. That is such a small amount of points to lose at a championship. 278 points to Vettel's 281. And sadly for Alonso, his story would basically stop there. He's never had the car or the potential throughout a full season to put up a fight in Formula 1 history since that 2012 season, and sadly the same goes for the Ferraris. They haven't had a car that has been able to push them throughout the full season to look like they could win a championship. But Ferrari's heartbreak was Red Bull's triumph, with Vettel going on to win another championship in 2013 and to retire from the sport in 2022. Chaos, heartbreak, and triumph, all in a season leading up to one final race that would change the history of Formula 1 forever. This is why we love F1.